last name, email ID, in this case, one more field, country, salary, etc. Along with that, there is navigation property on user ID, and that is going to accommodate items with common field user ID, then product ID, product name, and something like product price. So this is header fields. On expanding of navigation property, you can also get item related fields. So this is how the deep structure format looks like. So when the user provides inputs, first the user has to provide input with header record, something like this, something like this. And on expanding of navigation property, we need to accommodate item records matching with that header record. So item records can be something like this, with common field user ID, product P1, something like product name and product price, and one more item with same header record, one more item that is P2, something like you can make it as something like laptop 6,000 as a price, and one more item for the same header P3, something like tablet 7,000. So our deep structure format should accept input in this format, one header record and collection of item records. Then you can make use of create deep entity method implementation. One header record along with its corresponding item record. So this is the format that you need to use it to accept input from front end into OData service. This is how it should look like. So in order to develop this type of format, so all these things are technically part of something like LS Deep. Don't forget that. LS Deep internally contains all these options. According to our coding, and this is LS Deep hyphen navigation property on user ID. But both are part of, all these things are part of LS Deep itself. So LS Deep contains header along with corresponding items on expanding navigation property. So the format should look like this when you're passing the input. Be careful. This is LS Deep input format to hold header and its items. Now let us focus on the execution part. So this is active now, and this code is copied into our node file. And don't forget, Z user info is our header data table, and Z user details is our items data table. Don't forget these two things, because ultimately we are going to insert header and items in these two tables respectively. But how to test it? How to test this create deep entity method? If you want to test, open gateway client now. Activate, go back. So service is already registered. Service is already registered. Just directly open gateway client. Now here, if you want to provide input header plus items, what you need to do is you need to have some format. You need to have some specific format under HTTP request. So to get header plus its items related format, first we will try to execute get expanded entity method. Because create deep entity method is exactly opposite to get expanded entity method. So first fetch that data, fetch the format, then use that format, provide new values, then try to perform insert operation. So first let me select entity set, and then first let me fetch that one header with collection of items. For example, user ID matching with 1001, question mark, dollar format equal to, question mark, dollar expand equal to navigation property on user ID. This is header entity set, pass some input, and we are getting collection of items on expanding navigation property on user ID. So now we are trying to use get option, and we are executing the service here. Then what you will get? You are getting product P1 for 1001, product P2 for 1001, product P3 for 1001, and 1001 header record is available here. So we are getting header record in this case plus item 1, item 2, item 3 here. Similarly, you can see 1002, select get option, execute the service. When you select get option, what happens? Automatically get expanded entity method will be executed. Get expanded entity method will be executed on get option, and what you will get here? You'll get header record here, 1002 Venkat, and for this header record, this is one of the item, and this is another item. So there are only two items for that header record. You can see that. So now let me go with 1001 and execute. So when you select get option, it always executes by default in this scenario get expanded entity method, and you will be able to get header record 1001 Vijay, etc., etc. You can see that. But that header record contains item 1, item 2, item 3 here. Now I am interested in this format, header plus items. I am interested in this format. So now we are able to get that format here. So why don't you use the same format as HTTP request so that you can insert the data by using create deep entity method. So let us use the same format for executing create a deep entity method with post option. So what you need to do, first use this. Select get option and execute the service. With get option, the service executes get expanded entity method, which we have already implemented in our last scenario. In the last scenario, we have implemented get expanded entity method that will be executed on selecting get option with this particular syntax. Now, I can use this output here. I can use this output format and I can add some new values, and then I can go for insert operation with post option. So what you need to do now, you can select use as request option here. Use as request. Now the same format is copied from response to request. The same format is copied from HTTP response to HTTP request here. So under response section, what you can do now is the same format you can copy to HTTP request by using use as request option. After that, you can change the values here. Provide some new header record here. I want to provide new header record, something like UK01, something like that. UK01, that's a new header record I want to provide with something like Ajay. So here I am trying to provide header record values UK01 with Ajay Kumar here. Now scroll up. You can scroll up, and what you can do, you can also provide items here. UK01 P1 laptop, something like 5,000, something like that. And here you can provide the common field value UK01 P2 tablet and something like 4,000. Here you can provide common field value UK01 P3 mobile, something like, let me make it 9,000 here. So now we are trying to insert three items here. P1 laptop, P2 tablet, P3 mobile for header record UK01 Ajay Kumar. So we are trying to supply input in the form of header plus its items. We are trying to supply the input in the form of header plus its items under HTTP request. Now what you need to do, from the URL, try to remove this. From the URL, try to remove this. Just use entity set here after your service name and select post option, and then execute the service. On executing the service, you will get a message as 201, that's a successful execution of our service, and you are getting message as created. 201 is a successful execution of our post operation, and it has executed successfully, so you are getting a message as created. But what is a proof? You can open database table and you can verify. Let me open database table here from S11, Z user info, and let me check the header record whether it is inserted or not with UK01 you can see UK01 Ajay Kumar, country UK, salary 90,000, something like this. So this is the header record we have inserted successfully. Now, not only that, for this header record, what are the items? Whether items are inserted successfully or not. Let me check. Go back. You can go back here and select another table, Z user details, and execute this content. Open that content. Now you can see something like there are three items here matching with user ID UK01 with P1 laptop and P2 tablet, and you can see P3 mobile. So you can see that P1 laptop, P2 tablet and P3 mobile, and that is for UK01 header record here. So one header is inserted in first table, three items are inserted in second table. So we are able to successfully complete this scenario. Now let me write that procedure here. First select get option, executes the service with get expanded entity method. Now select use as a request option. Use as request option. So what this will do, it will copy HTTP response to HTTP request. It will copy the format from HTTP response to HTTP request when you select use as request option. Now what you do? Now under HTTP request, provide new header record values plus provide new item record values. Provide new header record plus its new item records. Under HTTP request, you need to do it, and from service URL, you need to remove this one. From service URL, you have to remove this. Remove this entire syntax, and what you do is select post option and execute the service. Now what happens in this case? With post option, the service executes create deep entity method. That's it. For verification, what you can do? You can open S11 and open your Z user info table. Check whether header record is inserted or not. Similarly, you can open S11 with table Z user details and check whether item records are inserted or not. So for more confirmation or verification purpose, you can explicitly open database tables and check that. So the point here is, if you want to test this service from gateway client to execute create deep entity method, you also need to implement get expanded entity method. Otherwise, our execution becomes very difficult. First, If you want to execute create deep entity method, make sure that get expanded entity method is also implemented. Otherwise, passing the input in a specific format becomes very difficult. So that's the reason why in the last scenario we have understood get expanded entity method. In today's scenario, we are understanding create deep entity method. These two are exactly opposite to each other. Please notice that. I want to explain this testing procedure once again. So you can see what you do is open gateway client. Just I'm repeating the testing procedure and select your user header set. That's an entity set which will have header record, but you need to fetch that header record with something like user ID, for example, 1001. You can use question mark dollar expand equal to navigation property NP on user ID. So we are trying to pass some input to get header record plus its corresponding item records on expanding navigation property. You will get header record in this case for this input along with its corresponding items on expanding navigation property. So execute the service. So you'll get that output. Now in this case I can say get expanded entity method is executed at this point of time. Now what you need to do? You need to use this format, header and collection of items. There is a format now under HTTP response. So this format, I want to use it for insert functionality. So select use as request option here. Use as request, then you'll get the same format here, left side, from response to request. What you need to do here, try to provide new header record. For example, UK02, Vijay Kumar, something like that. So UK02, that's a new header record with Vijay Kumar, country UK, salary something like 50,000. That's a header record. Now for this header record, you need to add some items. UK02 with P3, say for example, in this case, I want to use camera with 7,000. This is one of the item. Similarly, I can use UK02 P2 with, for example, desktop with 6,000. This is the second item. And similarly, UK02 P1, let me use here as mobile, something like 9,000. So this is a third item. Item 3, item 2, item 1, and this is the header record. So try to provide all the values in this particular section under HTTP request. Now what you need to do is you have to remove this from the URL. User ID 1001, expand, navigation property. You have to remove all these things from the URL, and what you do is select post option and execute the service. Let me take that screenshot here. So first what we have done, we have provided this input here, expand equal to navigation property. We are able to get the outputs. with get option, and we have executed that service. So after this, what we have done, we have selected use as request option. So it will copy from HTTP response to HTTP request. It will copy that format from HTTP response to HTTP request. And what we have done is we have changed all these values. We have provided new record values here for header as well as items. Header plus items. We have provided new header plus new items in this case with a common field user ID. So testing is not so easy. Better I highlight everything here. Now what you need to do, after providing a new header with collection of items in HTTP request, now you need to remove this. You have to remove this from the URL. Okay, I've just provided with thin line. So you have to remove that from the URL. This one. So let me highlight this. Remove from service URL. Now after removing from service URL, what you need to do is select post option here, then execute the service. Select post option, execute the service, and if everything goes fine, then you will get, okay, let me remove this from the service URL, select post option, execute the service. Now, if everything is successfully executed, you'll get status as created with 201 status code here. For more clarity, what you can do is you can open database table and verify. So UK02, that's a new header record. You can see that. Vijay Kumar, UK, something like 50,000. So that's a header record here in first table. Now let me go back. Z user details is another table. And let me check whether items are inserted or not. You can see this. UK02, P1, UK02, P2, UK02, P3. So all three items are inserted here. P1 mobile, P2 camera in this case, and sorry, P2 is desktop and P3 is camera here. So all three items are inserted for header record UK02. You can see that. So that is the scenario. Okay, let me go for debugging of this particular functionality. I want to debug this and I want to understand how exactly our LS deep structure format is represented internally. So you can apply debugging. Go for debugging and understand LS deep. This is input deep structure format with header plus its item. So let us focus on that particular work area, LS deep. So you can see now, I'm trying to go to DPC extension class. go to create a deep entity method. And I just want to check what exactly and how exactly input is coming to this particular ls deep. You can set an external breakpoint. I just want to recognize the format inside this ls deep work area, which resembles deep structure format. So now I need to execute once again from gateway client. So first we are getting some header record, sample header record with expand equal to navigation property on user ID. So you can execute here. If you want, you can also pass explicitly user ID equal to. Now you are able to get that. Because now in this case it has executed get expanded entity method. Now what we'll do, we'll try to use as request option. Use as request, and let me change the values. Something like UK03. UK03 with Ajay Kumar, something like that, some input with header record here. And you can see these are the items. Let me add some new items here for each header record. UK03, something like T1 or okay, T1 tablet. Be careful with the format. UK03 T2 with something like 5000. UK03 T3, something like that.
Pikachu.
So one header, 3 items we have provided under HTTP request. Now what we'll do is we'll remove this from the service URL, select post option, execute the service, and now create deep entity method is executed, and it is opening debugger on external breakpoint. It opens ABAP debugger on external breakpoint, and you can see that. Because it is executing now, create deep entity method here. You can see that. Create deep entity method. So on external breakpoint, the execution is halted. So what you can do, you can press F5 and execute line by line, something like that. F6, you can execute line by line. But I'm interested in what exactly is coming to LSDP here. So let me go to this. Now you can see this is the input which we are providing from HTTP request, or I can say from the front-end app with UK03 Ajay aj@ca.com, phone number, country, salary, etc. So this is a header record here. And it is a deep structure, you can see that. But on expanding navigation property on user ID, on expanding navigation property on user ID, you can see there are 3 items. When you double click on NP on user ID, you can see that we are getting 3 items, T1, T2, T3 for same header record. Tablet, camera, desktop, you can see that. So ls deep-np on user ID, on expanding with navigation property, you are able to get its items. You can trace out in debugger here. So header record, and on navigation property on user ID expansion, or when you double click, you are getting its items which we have provided as input in HTTP request. So I'm interested in taking this screenshot. Let me take another screenshot here. On expanding, you'll get items. Let me put it in this same screenshot here. So ls deep, initially you'll get header, and you can see on expanding navigation property on user ID, you will get its items here. Very simple. You'll get its items on expanding with navigation property and user ID. So you can trace all this entire information through ABAP debugger with an external breakpoint. Now this is the record, header record and the item records which we are trying to insert. So let me come out of this debugger. Let me complete the execution by pressing F8. Now the execution is completed and you are getting the response as 201 created. So this is one diagram that you need to focus while debugging. This is debugger screenshot to analyze header plus its items. And I've taken another screenshot. This is for testing get expanded entity method here, and after that we are testing create deep entity method here. So just set external breakpoint on debugger and use ls deep. Try to search for this and you will experience the input in the form of deep structure format which will accommodate header plus its items. That you can also analyze through debugger. Okay, I'll stop here. In the next session, we'll focus on some more topics. Okay.